Good morning, everyone. If you're coming in, yeah, as people are coming in, I'm going to get my slides set up, and hopefully you can all see that. Can't really see anyone else. So yeah. Um, Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning, Liberty Club's first webinar of the year, bringing together three of our sister businesses to look at how to build the dream board you can afford and take a bit of a look at what a good fractional C-suite leader looks like. So just a little bit about Liberti for those who don't know. I'm sure everyone's heard of Liberti, or at least one of our sister businesses. But who is Liberti? Well, Liberti is a group of market-leading fractional C-suite leader businesses. So the first one, which was founded about 25 years ago, so the 25-year anniversary, is the CFO Centre, which provides strategic and commercial finance leaders. There's the Marketing Centre, which provides fractional CMOs, people puzzles for fractional people directors for strategic and commercial HR. YRH Finance Team, which is operation accounting, so fractional leaders up to fractional finance managers, and Kiss the Fist, which for fractional sales directors as well. So we cover finance, people, sales, and marketing right across the group. So we have about 1,650 client business globally. We have over 1,000 fractional C-suite leaders supporting them. We have over 70 regional directors that match those and account manage those clients. And we have about 25 business service partners wrapped around the entire group as well. So what sets Liberti apart, it's not just functional expertise or intelligence, it's emotional and collective. It's definitely a collective joined up team solution. And to mark the 25-year anniversary of when fractional C-suite was pioneered with the CFO Centre, we have launched the Liberti Club. And the Liberti Club is a campaign to educate the wider business community about the evolution of fractional leadership as a service. It's very much designed to help all of those combined clients across the group to get more value from fractional and understand how to use it in different ways and use different fractional solutions. But a really key part of it as well is how fractional leaders help to those businesses to make the most of the partners wrapped around us as well. So everything from finance, insurance, technology to legal, we can really help with all of those partners as well. So we have a fairly packed agenda today. I'm going to set the scene by looking at some of the UK growth drivers and some of the trends around the future of work, and then we will hear from our expert panel on the evolution of fractional, not just for scale or exit, but way beyond that as well. Fractional as a C-suite service has definitely evolved in the last 25 years. I'm Alex Evans. I'm your host. I'll be navigating you through this today. I'm the director of Liberti Club, so I'll be bringing fractional and all of our content to the masses. We're joined by Sarah Dorr, who is the Group CEO of Liberti and the Group CEO of the CFO Centre. Sarah is a published author and speaker on the future of work, future of executive work. She's published a couple of books. She has lots of insight on the evolution of fractional leadership as a service, but certainly the evolution of fractional CFOs as well. So we'll be mining her for some insight on that. Ali Morn is the founder of People Puzzles, so the world's leading fractional people director business. She's a speaker on talent and leadership strategies, how to build value, and she's supported hundreds of SMEs through her business since founding the business in 2010. And then we have Farida Jalil, who is a fractional CMO with the Marketing Centre. Farida's been a fractional CFO with the Marketing Centre for over a decade, working with scale-ups and SMEs all the way to large corporate clients as well. So she's got a really great perspective on the evolving role of a fractional leader, being one herself, and how she's having an impact on businesses. So we'll be hearing from them in a moment. So just to kick off, really, just a bit of a scene setter, really. And whatever your views on Sam Altman, whether you loathe him or hate him, he does come out with some interesting things every now and again, and some very provocative things as well. A couple of years ago, he said that a one-person billion-dollar company will happen. And of course, a lot of people will take that as a challenge. I think it's very hard for businesses to have so few employees, but it's probably easier for a tech business. We've got a table here of all of the top unicorns with the fewest employees. And Safe Superintelligence currently is at the top with 10 employees and a 5 billion valuation. Funnily enough, Sam Altman's business still relies on over 5,500 businesses to deliver all of its work and stuff. So he's quite far away from his dream. But I wanted to share this slide really to set the scene on the future of work and how the future of work is changing and why it's becoming a lot easier for businesses to punch well above their weight with different talent and technology solutions as well. Just a few numbers to whet your appetite as well. Liberti is right around the mid-tier business community, and it supports businesses from from million to 50 million generally, but certainly way above that and some below that as well. And we call them the UK economy's forgotten middle children because a lot of policy just does not support small businesses, and I'm sure there's this whole other webinars on that topic. But there are 5.6 million businesses in the UK with up to 50 staff employing 13 million people, and they generate just under 1.9 trillion to the economy. Those with up to 250 staff actually generate 2.8 trillion to the economy and employ about nearly 17 million people. So it's a hugely economically powerful part of our economy that really needs nurturing and supporting. I don't know if any of you follow the Scale Up Institute and their annual report, but their last one found that there were just under 45,000 scale-ups in the UK, up by 10,000 on 2024. So something's definitely working in the UK. Their businesses with 20% year-on-year growth for at least 3 years, and they generate 2.19 trillion to the economy as well, 50% of SME output. So they're really, really valuable, and they really do need supporting as well. And the top barriers to scale for UK businesses and the scale-ups and mid-tier businesses, they've always been the same. I think for the last 10 or 11 years, it's always been about access to talent, strategic leadership, markets, and finance. And that's definitely something that Liberti and our sister businesses really help with. The cost and risk of a bad hire is rising. The Employment Rights Bill is going to create a lot of complexity, but the increased cost of national insurance has created a disincentive to hiring. But beyond all of that, getting the wrong person in the wrong seat in the business is really, really expensive and really, really risky. So the REC found that the average cost of a bad hire at mid-manager level is about 132 grand. At senior exec level, it's 4 times their salary, plus all the reputational damage and morale damage and everything else. There are 150 million job applications a year in the UK and 3 million change jobs annually, according to the CIPD. And 1.2 million of those leave their jobs after 12 weeks at an average cost of 12k per employee right across that. So that costs the UK 14.4 billion. So employers are really footing the bill for some poor recruitment into their businesses. So there's definitely demand for a more flexible and affordable alternative, and unfortunately one has arrived. Before I joined Liberti, I was the MD of a business called Talent Partners for 6 years, and which was wrapped around the HR and recruitment world. And clearly, the two major trends were that the future of work is flexible and the future of executive work is fractional. Half the world's employed population is now self-employed, and that's growing. The freelance platform market is set to triple over the next few years as well, because so that people can access that talent quickly and easily. But on the fractional exec side, it really has seen an explosion. We've gone from 2,000 people describing themselves as fractional leaders in 2022 to 142,000 at the beginning of last year, so way more than that now. The global fractional exec market is predicted to quadruple to just under 30 billion over the next few years. And the Scale Up Institute found that 60% of founders and CEOs are now looking for more help from fractional leaders and board advisors. That's up from 40% the year before as well. So there's huge demand for that as a product now. With all of that in mind and with the scene set, I'm now going to invite our panel in to talk about how fractional has evolved and what founders and CEOs should expect from the best fractional C-suite solutions. And on that, I will go back to the panel. Hello, panel. Are you there?
Hello.
Brilliant. Great to see you. So I'm going to start with you, Sarah, thought leader on the future of work. So why do you believe that fractional leadership is the best new model for exec work for SMEs and corporates, and how have you seen that evolve?
Okay, so I do think that fractional is one of the most important shifts, actually, that we're seeing in how organizations can access senior talent. And I think at its core, the what it reflects is a move from ownership to access. And there are a lot of access models out there. We've seen them, Airbnb, Spotify. So it's not just, this is just the Spotify, the C-suite. And traditionally, if you wanted top level expertise, you had to hire it full time. You've just talked about that, Alex. And most growing businesses just don't need it. A full time CFO, CMO, CHRO, 5 days a week. What they actually need is really high quality judgment at the right time. And that's where fractional comes in. And for SMEs, it's an absolute game changer. I mean, they can access this C-suite capability, people who've operated at a high level that's aligned to their size and stage, and they can get better decisions earlier, faster, without the cost base. But it's not just about cost, and I think that's really important because I actually think it's a higher quality model than the full-time model because the fractional leaders will bring in multiple experience from their portfolio of businesses. And that means that they can cut through the complexity faster and not get caught up in the internal politics. And from the exec side, the win is that it's a very attractive career path. These people who go down this route want flexibility, autonomy, control, variety, and run a portfolio. And so you get this very positive cycle where strong talent is drawn to the model, which improves the quality of the model and the credibility. And there we go. And lastly, just to say that it's not just about SMEs, it's corporates as well. So here again, it's not just a cost lever, it's a capability driver. And what we're seeing is fractional twinning coming into the market. And that's where organizations can get access to another one of me. That group CMO or CFO who's just underwater with too much to do. And they can bring in specialists to work with them in an agile way, flexibly, no headcount, to accelerate transformation and really cut through the complexity in the world. So for me, it's fundamentally a better way of matching, high-end expertise right from the SMEs all the way through to the corporates.
Brilliant. And and as I mentioned at the start, this model was pioneered, 25 years ago. I don't think it was necessarily called fractional at the time, but it kind of, if it walked like fractional and talked like fractional, sounded like fractional was fractional. So how has that evolved as a service over the last 25 years, or is it roughly been the same? And where do you see it going?
Okay, so it started with execs. I was one of them. I was a part-time FD way back when. Now I'm a fractional CFO. It's the same thing. And for me, it was the driver around balancing family with also having a career. And what was interesting then is no one knew what we were talking about way back then. But when an entrepreneur or growing SME business owner saw it, they really loved it because they could access this talent and it could give them agile talent strategies in fast moving environments. And it meant they had the right expertise at the right time. And what's happened since then is it has really caught on, and particularly, I think, after COVID. So there was before COVID and after COVID. And I think after COVID, what's happened is organizations are beginning to see they absolutely need this because the world is a complex place with lots going on, and they need the best brains around them in an agile way to focus on it. And then also the individuals have decided and seen that there's actually, they want more meaning and purpose to their life. So they want to get control of their schedules, see their kids, put them to bed, look after their elderly parents, have a bit more of a life. And this is a way of doing it. So I think those two drivers have come together now. And that's why we're seeing this massive explosion and all the numbers that you just talked about, Alex.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think just a kind of a cheeky additional question. I think something I've definitely seen slightly on the recruitment side over the last 5 years. Executive search was probably the most robust bit of recruitment. I think, staffing has definitely taken a bit of a smacking over the last few years, and transactional recruitment has definitely been a lot tougher. The emergence of talent solutions, certainly from a volume perspective, has done a lot better. But executive search has done pretty well. Do you think fractional is going to change that? I mean, we're definitely seeing more people who are opting to change their careers and how they work. As you say, it's not necessarily something that's an alternative to becoming a non-exec or or a board advisor in retirement. This is something that people in their 50s are looking at as a new way of doing more interesting things. Do you think that's going to be a permanent change and that's going to grow in popularity?
I do think it's here to stay because I think the trains left the station around individuals realizing that they can have a portfolio and this is a way to do it. I mean,
Mm,
it's straightforward to run a fractional portfolio, but it's not easy. And to be a skilled fractional executive, you need some very clear skills around building a client base, finding, winning, and keeping the businesses you work with, around managing multiple portfolios and relationships, context shifting, all that sort of stuff. So
mm,
I think that's the break on it, is that to be a true fractional C-suite leader, it's not something that you can just go into lightly. I think you really do need to make a life commitment around it. But I
mm,
do think the demand in the marketplace is there, and therefore that will disrupt the recruitment models that have been, there in the past, and the old way of engaging in one full-time person forever. I
mm,
mean, that's just not the way it's going to be anymore because if you think about it, organizations are demanding hyper personalization, consumers are demanding hyper personalization of services. So, this is a way of delivering that in a fractional way to meet that demand. And I think that will continue.
mm. Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to move on to Ali in a second to talk a bit about this through a people lens. But just to remind people on our webinar this morning that please do post any questions, anything that occurs to you during the course of this panel. Please post your question on the chat, and we'll look to get to that after this panel, and I'll ask a broader questions of all of our speakers as well. But yeah, we want to answer as many questions that you have as possible today, and also get a sense of how you see fractional, whether you're looking for a solution or whether you're looking to be the solution as well. So please do use that. So yeah, Ali, what are the biggest people challenges that you're helping your clients with?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? We continue to be leading businesses in very turbulent times, and the pace of change is a constant challenge. And it's not settling down, is it? It's just continuing at that same frenetic rate. And I think it's really common that it's tough at the top. It's not just the economy, it's changes legislation, it's how we employ people and the taxation. And where do CEOs turn for support? That it's lonely at the top has just been, a sort of mantra, I think, of the last 15 years of me working at being in people puzzles. But I think the common theme is these businesses are all led by ambitious people who aren't going to let tough economic conditions stop them from pushing the business forward. So we
Mm,
see a lot of common themes around knowing that if they've got the right people in the right seats, it can change the game because suddenly they can delegate. There's a plan for the business being bigger or in more locations or handing it over to whether it's somebody in the family or growing middle managers and passing on more responsibility to them. And there's some big themes that sit alongside that about whether business leaders are going for exit, whether that's a sort of trade sale or an EOT or passing it on to family. Um, or they've just got, other plans for how they want to live their lives. And I think this personal life, sort of what people want from their lives, is increasingly being a voice. And that sort of maybe boomer mentality that I'm just going to work really, really hard until I retire is shifting.
mm,
People want a different flavor from their lives as they go on that journey. So all of those big dreams that people have for their businesses mean actually doing different things with the employees, the team, the setup, the skills you need throughout the organization. So, one big plan for your business means a whole host of changes around who your people are. And people expect a lot now. Well, even if you've only got 40 people in the business, they expect career development and being treated personally and having a say and being trained and developed. So it's quite a lot to run a great people function. And we just find many business leaders, CEOs don't have the skills. It's not their thing that gets them out of bed in the morning. And so getting in some
mm,
expertise to do that. And even as Sarah sort of talked about, even if there's a full-time CPO, actually there's just not enough hours in the day to do all of those initiatives. So the people challenges I'd say are many, Alex, and
Yeah, yeah.
need careful support.
Yeah, and I think I was having a conversation with BGF, who's one of our partners, yesterday actually, and talking about the role of fractional that they're seeing across their investee businesses. And it was interesting that they made the point that that founders often spend money last on the non-revenue generating functions like HR or even finance, for example. But what BGF look at, very quickly actually is, enhancing the capability of HR, because you need to keep those people engaged. If there's post acquisition, you need to see where the capability gaps are, and you need to fill those gaps. So I think it's definitely becoming more of a focus. But as you say, I think it may have been seen as a luxury to have HR in a scaling business before. But talent is the foundation that you build growth upon. So it's definitely something you need to sort out.
It's ironic, really, isn't it? Because where do most companies spend most of their money? It's on the salary roll. And
Yeah.
how does everything in your business get delivered? Well, your new tech projects get delivered by people, and your sales get delivered by human beings. In part of the process, maybe
Mm.
not all of it anymore. So every single thing that's happening in your business, apart from your lovely example of the billion-dollar company with one person, is being delivered by people doing things. And how do you bring change? Those people need to do things a bit differently. So
Mm.
yeah, for me, everything comes back to the people.
So in terms of what's different, so you founded People Puzzles in 2010. A lot's happened since then. I mean, a lot's happened in the last week. Fair enough. So how has demand changed? How has the expectation changed amongst your clients? How are they using you in different ways to maybe they did 15 years ago?
I think the old model of HR is a phone line. We're all used to that idea. You pay somebody and you'd have a 5-year contract. And then when something disastrous has happened, you phone somebody and then they make some of the legal stuff easier.
Mm.
And then we've also had the traditional HR consultancy where, oh, we need to do appraisals for everybody and we don't know how to do it. And we sort of have these maybe one-hit wonders or shut the stable door after the horse has bolted. But I've always been obsessed by how does the people function add um, add to the strategy? How does it add to the systems? How does it enable the senior team to communicate and make better decisions? How does it communicate the business plan to every single person in the organization so that people are aligned and everyone's rowing in the same direction? But my reflection is business owners and business leaders don't actually know what to expect from a brilliant people function because they haven't seen it. Maybe they've
Mm.
been in a big corporate and seen HR as the company that writes the pay rise letters and tells them they can't do the things that they want to do. Or in a small business, it's just been absent. So in a growing, ambitious business that looks at its profit and its margin and its commercial reality, most people don't have sort of live stories or examples of a people function adding value in those places. And
Mm.
so People Puzzles has always been in that. I set it up. I've sort of imagined it as this space where how do people add to the success, make more margin, help the business be more profitable, help the business to grow faster than it would have done without that support? And
Mm.
how do we deliver the business plan? And I think the reality of that is a long-term journey that you walk alongside a senior team, and that means you need long-term commercial HR and people support on that journey. It's not a one-hit wonder. It's not sorting out a disaster. It's saying, who do we want to be? How do we want to treat our people? And do we want to be a high-performing organization? And then, that's what we provide, that
Mm.
accompaniment on the journey.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to move on to Farida in a second, but I think I had the pleasure of attending the People Puzzles induction last week, and yeah, something that really stood out was that back from the future exercise that you do with your people directors, where you've got that 3-year plan, 5-year plan to show for those different stages of scale, this is what you need to have in place to understand that. And I think it really brings to life. I think it's very good patience management for a very ambitious founder, because I think patience is something that needs to be managed as well. But I'll come back to some of that in a moment. So thank you very much for that, Ali. So Farida, so you're the actual fractional on the panel. Certainly, the current fractional on the panel. You've been a fractional CMO with the Marketing Centre for over 10 years now. So how have the expectations of your clients changed over, certainly over the last 5 years since COVID?
Yeah, I probably echo some of the views that Sarah and Ali have raised. It's certainly not part-time thinking because you're on tap all the time. You don't just walk away when you've done your 1 or 2 days a week. How the expectations change, I think since COVID, if you remember in COVID, a lot of businesses hit a spike. Well, that spike has remained and that level of scale and growth is very much here to stay. And as competition gets harder and harder and the trading kind of environment gets more difficult, you're finding that businesses are just operating at that fight and flight kind of way of working continually. So that's
Mm,
not changing anytime soon. And really what's happening is from a marketing perspective that it's moved from a support function to one that is where you're thinking about activity being delivered to something that is really very much focused around strategy and direction. The C-suite and the board is very different. They're much more hands-on. They want to know the detail. They want to understand not what the activity is, but why are we doing that activity and how are we going to make it better? Because marketing it dovetails and it kind of it doesn't step over, but it kind of overlaps with IT because of the development of how businesses are transforming digitally, the implementation of AI and how that's improving efficiencies and creating more space to create points of differentiation. So there's lots of things now happening where we overlap where it comes to the cost and spend and see how the activity is going to produce a better ROI, right through to the type of talent as well that's being implemented. And what I'm finding is that businesses that were the rate, the speed at which they want to keep moving is there's a real kind of pressure on that, and that's not going to really
mm,
change. And there's a big skills gap between what the marketeers, because some businesses have no marketing activity, they've got some people doing little bits and pieces. Some businesses have big teams in place. And there is a difference between the strategy and the direction that is set by the board and how it's implemented. And the C-suite are very much into the detail and they want to understand it and they want to see how the performance is going to improve because they're used to that level of
mm,
detail. So I think that there's a big shift in that, but I think it's a positive shift. Um,
mm,
One of the other things that I've noticed in COVID, and people in the room might be aware of this, is that there are a lot of mature businesses, aging businesses that maybe have been set up in the 70s and early 80s. And some of those boards might have, or the founders might have been thinking about stepping back. And what I'm finding now is that they can't step back because of the amount of pressure on the businesses to perform. Because the competitive landscape is it's whether if you're not looking after your customers, someone else is eyeballing them. So there's a real
mm,
pressure to kind of not just retain your existing customers, but search out new markets. And those businesses that are maturing, the founders are stepping back into the businesses. They might have thought about their family members stepping up. And a lot of the role that I do is, aside from kind of sleeves rolled up and getting into the implementation side, we coach a lot of the people that are coming up the ranks. We also kind of I get involved with if they've got a good marketeer that they want to step up into head of marketing, or they're already a head of marketing, they want them to have a seat at the table at the board at the boardroom table. We'll do that coaching and development so that they can understand why we're actually doing this activity and what the impact is going to be and how they can position themselves with the rest of the board so that we can build the leaders of
Mm.
tomorrow. So there's a real kind of interesting shift, but it's certainly not part-time thinking.
No, and I think, and just before I kind of open up to the panel as well, just because there are a lot of people who are looking at becoming fractional leaders, and I've seen a lot, particularly in marketing as well, from larger businesses. How has your role evolved? How do you kind of keep your capabilities fresh and relevant, to not just SMEs but to large corporates as well?
Yeah, I think that so there's a point that was mentioned earlier that the we have a team of 90 CMOs up and down the country. So, and we've got a wider network through the Liberti group. And organizations that we work with really tap into that because they're not just getting that one CMO, they're also getting all the talent that sits behind that. And I know we're going to ask some questions later on. I'm sure you've got some things that you want to raise with this, but you tend to find that or businesses where they're really into the kind of the fractional model will want to tap into that skill set and that experience. And we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I've got a team behind me of 90 CMOs up and down the country because there might be regional differences. There might be suppliers that they know of. There might be expertise in certain elements of digital transformation that may not know about. So I can tap into all of that resource, tap into that expertise, and even bring that forward as well, because as fractional CMOs, we're not afraid to have that skill set within the marketing centre and the wider group, so we can bring
Mm.
that talent forward and help the business mobilize and take advantage of that talent. So there is a real shift in that, and organizations do take the benefit of that, and they will
Mm.
regularly ask me, well, what do your colleagues think of that? What do you think? How do you think that we could develop this area? How do you
Mm.
think that this pricing model would work? So and obviously we're all bound by confidentiality, but we can certainly bring that skill into the forefront.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I'm going to talk a bit about, I suppose the growth of the Lone Ranger fractionals in a moment. But before that, and yeah, another invitation to the people on the call. So yeah, if you've got burning questions, if there's anything that you've heard, or if there's any question you have about using fractional, being a fractional, changes in the evolution of recruitment, whatever it might be, any points you want to make, please do put them in the chat. But Sarah, I'm going to come to you just quickly on. Part of the theme around this very webinar is building the dream board that you can afford, and what we've seen a lot more of across Liberti, and actually part of the reason I'm here for Liberti Club is because seeing a lot more of that is boards using multiple fractionals. We've got clients who are using, I think one is using all 5 of our sister businesses, partners, and I think at the moment, great business by the way, one of our partners. But we're seeing more of that. And why do you expect that to be a growing trend, Sarah? And I suppose the question off the back of that is, how easy is it to manage that? Is it all down to the CEO?
Yes, no, I think it is a growing trend because what I found is that when business owners engage with perhaps one business to start with and go into that relationship and work with a fractional C-suite leader, then I've often had them call up and say, oh, I really like what you're doing with finance. That's really great. You don't happen to do it in marketing, do you? You don't happen to do it in people because they see it works and then they're bought into the model. And then they obviously can expand and see how they can use all the different skills to scale at the appropriate times. So I think once you've made that leap into working with fractional, it's working really, really well. I think then there is the opportunity for it to go wider. And what's really interesting about that in terms of Liberti in particular is that because we're all joined up as an organization, so we're a collective, we're all joined up and we all collaborate and we know how each other works because we all work in a similar way, but obviously in our different functional expertise.
Mm.
So the great thing is that we can take responsibility for acting together and teaming and lading and working and sequencing and phasing and working together when we need to, and that relieves, I think, some pressure from the business owner in feeling that they have to do that. So we can,
Mm,
obviously, it's a team approach and we work with them, but we're very comfortable working as a unit. So I think that's a real added benefit of us all being on the same page. And I think that really shines through with organizations. And it's absolutely vital because you don't need everyone all the time at the same intensity. You know, some businesses might need the finance to pull back a little bit, but still be there. I mean, I think for me, the biggest message I want to get across to anyone who will listen about it is that fractional C-suite leadership needs to be an ongoing part of the furniture, part of an organization. It's flexible, you can dial it up and down, but it's important it's there all the time because what we do is we're constantly looking ahead and we are able to risk manage. We know what's coming ahead because we've run big businesses and we know what it's like to get to big. So we
mhm,
know what organizations need to be looking out for, and then we can work together to navigate our way through it.
mm,
And it's totally affordable. And quite frankly, if we're not delivering an ROI many times over, then we shouldn't be there anyway. And that's how we're set up. We're set up to always be there when the relationship's working and deliver that ROI and
mm.
continue. And I think that's the way it can work really, really well for organizations.
Brilliant. Ali, just go back to the Lone Ranger point. As I say, I spent some time with some new inductees to People Puzzles last week, and yeah, I mean, something that clearly appealed to them was that they were joining a team, that they weren't going to be isolated in how they kind of deliver this. They weren't going to be an island of one. So, yeah, what's your view about the rise of the Lone Ranger? Because there are a lot of them. I think there was a time on LinkedIn when 85% of them on there were life coaches. Now they are fractionals. So yeah. How are you competing with them?
I think, we've always used the word freelance, haven't we? And there've been people who've been available or they've had sort of micro businesses, and fractional is the cool new word. You're taking a fraction of somebody's working time, and it does, I think, have a nicer flavor than part-time, because actually for a lot of people, we used to find part-time sort of meant doesn't work really very hard. And actually, to do an amazing job as a fractional is incredibly hard work. You are in the client, delivering, adding value. You have to deliver a multiple of value compared to the costs. But I think one of the ways I think can explain this quite nicely is our selection process. So you were at induction, Alex, last week with 4 new people directors joining People Puzzles. We'd had more than 1,000 applications to take on those 4 people. So that's 1 in 250. Now, everybody on LinkedIn who's going out to fractional has somebody selected them as the best in 250 other fractionals. We are really obsessively careful about who can join People Puzzles because we are really, really obsessed by that commercial lens, that ability to look at the business strategy, to look bigger at an organization. And of course, some of those applications will be from people who are not experienced enough. But by the way, we can judge that. So take a business owner who has never hired an HR C-suite person before. How are they supposed to know from this, thousands of people calling themselves a fractional HR leader, available to them, who is actually going to be good, worth the money, worth the time and investment to see what they can deliver? So I think that's a real difference. We look at the right background, whether they've got client growth strategies, whether they can cope with complexity, whether they can add wider value to a business than just that narrow pocket of the HR function. And then I think the other part of it is, how does being part of an organization like the sister businesses here or People Puzzles add value? We have got loads of toolkits, we've got loads of training material, we've got loads of collaboratively designed work to deliver with clients that has been created over 15 years. That means one of our people directors can go, right, we're looking at succession. I can lay my hands on competency frameworks and the right tech that could enable this to happen because we've worked on our partners. So you're not just getting a person. This is not just a simple matching recruitment type game. This is having access to somebody in a team of 80, 90 fractional people directors, all working with business that are ambitious and they want to grow. And then suddenly something insane happens like COVID. And as a collective, we build a toolkit around helping clients who are going through the struggles of COVID, how to make the best of it, how to pivot, and we can roll that out to our entire client base. So that
Mm,
team approach, a really broad service, not just access to one person. And I just don't see how an independent, a lone ranger, as you've called them, can compete with that huge access. And then I just you have to shut me up in a minute, Alex. But
yeah,
the
yeah.
last thing is most people join us because they actually aren't great at networking. They don't love the sales and marketing aspect of it. And they just know on their own they kind of can't win clients at the right level because there's that
Mm,
education piece. What does it mean to have a fractional CPO instead of an HR consultant or a phone line? The right the matching is just beautiful when somebody with the right skills goes into a client that has the right opportunity and together there's that sort of additional value in the whole setup. So
mm,
it's it works for people who want to come into that collaborative environment, be part of the team, get access to toolkits, and get introduced to the right type of clients at the right moments. And it doesn't work for
mm,
people who want to be lone rangers. So there's a choice
mm.
out there, as there always has been.
Yeah,
Can I
brilliant. And I
just
mean,
add to that? Can I
yeah,
just add to
okay.
that a minute? So at the marketing centre, we go through like a 12 stage process as the person's onboarded, so it's very intense. And I think just to add to what Ali's been saying is that apart from understanding commercially what our business needs to achieve, and it's that operational implementation that makes it different, and that's where we differ from lots of other kind of, I suppose, lone rangers out there. We're used to working as part of the team. We're used to being in the business, being part of that conversation, and then making it happen from an implementation level, because a lot of the fractional people have been in there, they've been in there, done it, got the t-shirt, they're used to all of that process. So
Mm.
it's a very intense process. I mean, I think it's about 12 phases. Yeah, 12 phases.
Yeah, and just on that, uh, how does fractional compare to something like being a board advisor or a non-exec? I think some of the evolution of some of the principals across the group have moved into those kind of roles as well. But yeah, how do you see the main kind of distinction between fractional and being a board advisor or a non-exec, Frida?
I think with Neds, and we do get asked this question a fair bit, they tend to be responsible for governance, for risk, and they tend to look at the board overall. With fractional, we are actually operationally in the reads. We're part of that growth strategy. So it is actually a very different role. It's just going back to what Sarah and Ali have been saying, we're literally part of the board. We are just not there 5 days a week.
Mm,
So we are part of that. We're part of that business, and usually fractional people are in 1 or 2 days a week. Neds tend to meet once at board meetings once a month, so it's a very different touch point to what the fractional CMO, CFO, HR director. So it's very different as a structure.
mm.
And I think that well, not think, but generally speaking, we will own the ROI, we'll own the growth strategy, we'll work with the rest of the board members. We're just not there on a 5 days a week.
Yeah, brilliant. And going back, Sarah, to the earlier point I made about, I suppose the view of, VC, private equity investors, on fractional, how that's evolved. I mean, certainly as you've seen it through a finance lens, and but more broadly, yeah, have you seen that evolution in the way investors or acquirers view fractional now?
Yeah, so I think it's gathering pace actually. So I mean, in the US, it is absolutely normal for any business that takes on any investment to have a fractional CFO. That will be a box on the sheet to say, have we got one on board? And because I think the investors there are absolutely so knowledgeable and they've realized that that's what that business needs and they're really bought into the concept. And
Mm,
I see that a lot as well. Outside investors, whether they're, whether they're venture capital, private equity, whether it's bank, any sort of outside investment, I think they get much more reassured by knowing that there is particularly someone looking after finance. So in that head, that C-suite of finance. And what I also see is business owners really love it as well because it helps them to appear more credible than perhaps if they didn't have that knowledge. They can pass the conversations over to their CFO. It makes them feel like they're punching above their weight. And actually, we can talk their language. We can talk the language of all the advisors, and we'll each be doing that in people, in marketing. We're all specialists at talking the language of the other partners that support in those functions. And as Ali's pointed out, often a founder or a CEO just hasn't got all those specialisms. And why should they?
Mm.
They need to concentrate on what they're really good at doing. And by bringing in a C-suite around them, we allow that to happen. So the other thing that I think is quite special about our organization is that we absolutely believe that the equity that business owners have is very much precious and should be kept by them. So quite a lot of
Mm.
other models out there, or lone rangers even, I think are always, and I think a lot of perhaps CFOs that go in on an interim basis, they'll look to take equity off the table for a business. And our view is actually no, have a flexible, affordable solution, but keep your equity because it's precious for you and you need to use it in the right places and we'll help you grow it for you.
Mm.
So that's one of our philosophies as a business is that we want these business owners to be successful. They've risked a lot. We want to support them. We want to go with them and support them to do, exactly what they want to do.
Mm, brilliant. And I'm just, Ali, I'm just going to an extension to that question from your side. As I mentioned from BGF, that they're actually people and sales are probably where they're seeing the greatest demand in terms of supporting businesses because they need to build a sustainable sales function, but they also need to build a sustainable people function as well. So are you seeing more interest from investors around that?
It's interesting, isn't it? You get a lump of money, and the danger is just to go and hire people who maybe you're not brilliant at hiring. Oh my goodness, what could go wrong? Go and hire loads of people and set this, big investment on the path. But if you get those people wrong, my goodness, what a disaster. And we've been called into investor-backed businesses before where they've
Mm,
powered through a huge amount of the investment on totally the wrong C-suite people who haven't had an impact. So we
yeah.
are finding, yes, that we get the call. We're just about to invest in this business. People Puzzles, can you go in and help on that? To kick them off in a really good way. And I think there's amazing freedom in a model where you have the right C-suite expert in the room for this next period. So we've got people who are specialists in, we've just got investment. How are we going to spend the money, but also be accountable and deliver the results because of this investment? And then maybe 18 months later, you need somebody with slightly different skills because you're entering a bit more of a sort of holding steady zone or a slightly slower growth or
Mm,
embedding in all of these new people that have hired. And actually, as Sarah was talking about earlier, that sort of switching out model of, well, this has been the right person for this phase, and People Puzzles has got such a suite of people. I can have somebody else for this phase. We can transfer all that knowledge. We can
mm,
help on the next leg of the journey. And this saves incredibly big on costs and off costs of hiring
mm,
senior leaders. And the stats about how long board members last in companies is actually way shorter than you think. Averages are sort of 2, 3, 4 years, depending on the discipline. And you
mm,
think of the cost of a settlement agreement and paying somebody off, especially with the legislation that's coming in from January 2027 about probation. Once people have been there 6 months, they've got the right to permanent employment. And we have to find a better way than those huge salaries and that huge cost of recruitment and exiting people. And
yeah,
fractional
yeah,
just ticks all those boxes. So, not only just for the delivery what actually we can achieve with our clients, but also the burden of hiring executives that may not work out. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we are seeing that increase.
And just before, I'm going to make it the kind of last question for the panel about, fractional versus exec. And then we've got a couple of questions in the chat as well that I'll look to round off with as well. But yeah, if you've got a question, please do whack it in now and we'll try and get it in our last 10 minutes. But yeah, final thought from the panel really on fractional versus permanent hires. What are the other advantages that we've not necessarily covered in this call? I'll start with you, Farida, because you haven't spoken for a bit.
I think I think it's a much more it's a much more lean model to work with. I think it carries less risk. I think that you're able to apply your commercial acumen. A lot of the fractional CMOs run their own business as well, so they know how it feels and all the pain points with that. And I think that it's a lot of fun as well. You're not having to deal with a lot of the politics that can sometimes weigh you down, and you can go in and do and really get the impact with the business and let them see the impact of what really good marketing strategies can deliver. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of the fractional model. You do have to keep your wits about you though. But
Brilliant.
you becoming that confidant for the business owner as well and the CEO, who can share their concerns, and you can then help really cut through all the nonsense and get into the implementation side very quickly.
Yeah, brilliant. Sarah, thought. I mean, we talked a bit about positive provocation last week. Yeah, what are your thoughts on fractional as an advantage?
So from a business point of view, if I was a business leader and what's the benefit of having fractional, for me, it would be that I think you can go a long way on a fractional model. So I think the trajectory before you need a permanent hire is actually quite a long one. You can get up to 75, 100 million pounds in revenue on the fractional model if you let and encourage your fractional C-suite leader in your discipline to build the right team around them. And that's what it's all about, is building out the right team, because then you've got a really agile structure and you're not putting too much budget in one position or another. So you can really have all the right people in the right slots, which gives you a very comprehensive and an agile structure to go a long way on. And then also once you've gone past that, even, I think there is also a model where you can, Ali touched on it a little bit, where you can, as a business owner, think of accessing the talent on a higher intensity basis than owning it through employment. Because if you do it that way, then you can have more seamless transitions about moving when people need to move on, or if they don't fit anymore, or equally you can bring the team in. And that's the other beauty of a model where it's a collective, because then people can step back and you can bring in specialists to fulfill certain bits of the role that you could never get that with one person, with one set of knowledge, one set of skills, one set of time. So it is really a very, very well-designed model. So I would encourage people to try it.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm gonna probably close with the question about what one piece of advice would you give to someone about to go into fractional. And I think the point about uncertainty around the world with, we are living, I think change is the only constant. Uncertainty is definitely business as usual, or kind of change as usual. So what we've definitely seen is people looking at flexible and fractional hiring as a way of hedging their bets, because hiring someone permanently and then having to unhire them in the future is not just expensive, but it damages lots of other elements as well. But I think it's certainly a way of fractional is also a way of understanding what you should expect from a C-suite hire as well. But yeah, Ali, final thought on stuff we've not really covered. No one's talked about energy yet, and I think I would give you that one, Ali, on energy, that you can bring up by sitting on multiple boards. And then I think final thought for the panel on what do you wish you'd known before you started, or one piece of advice for somebody looking to become fractional. But yeah, Ali, over to you.
Yeah, on the energy, I think it can weigh you down working in a business. We go into some of our clients and you look around and the directors are tired. And the person who, especially if you're sort of twinning, where you're helping out somebody who's really overwhelmed in their role, Some people are exhausted. It's been a hard slog of change, right? And our team walk in the door and they are positive and they're upbeat and they're energetic and they walk in with the attitude of, what an amazing job you've done to get to here. Let's unlock the bottlenecks. That's probably a bad set of words, isn't
Mm.
it? Let's
Yeah.
unlock the things that are holding you back. Let's unblock those bottlenecks and really let's see where we could go next. And sometimes that power of positivity, walking through the door every Tuesday, makes everybody else feel like things could be different.
Mm.
And having that relationship where you're not subservient, you're not an employee, you are a peer of the C-suite. And so you can talk to them about things like their lives, like their hopes for the future, like their exit strategy, like the things that are driving them insane that they might not be able to talk to anyone inside the business. So there
Mm.
is just something that is almost hard for me to articulate, but that is beyond employment. And the reason I know that is sometimes our team do go and go and work as an employed person in those clients. And more often than not, it doesn't work because it changes and they lose the energy and they become the sort of more subservient employee box. So fractional's got something to it, which is additional to the
Mm.
working relationship that you have in the rest of the business. So
So,
what's the
so,
piece of advice I'd give on
yes,
the
so,
back
yes,
of
yes,
that?
so very, very great, very quick across the panel now. So what? Yeah,
Yeah.
one piece of advice. Go on, Annie.
Well,
You
if you
first.
want to work like that, it's amazing. If you want to have that different relationship and that different energy, it's not always easy. It can be really hard work, but it's really fulfilling.
Brilliant, Frida.
I would probably say keep your knowledge fresh. Know that you're going to be people are tapping into that knowledge bank, and that makes you a better CMO, a better fractional CMO. The energy point is really critical, but and don't be afraid, don't underestimate the value of your black book. Your supplier base is really critical, and I think we undervalue that sometimes when we're in full-time roles. So just those couple of pieces of advice.
Brilliant. Actually, we didn't really talk about partner network, which is a fundamental part of
Yeah.
the offering that we have. But just generally, I think right across the networks I've seen across startup, scale up, SME, and corporate as well, having access to a value partner network, but understanding how to use those business service providers, get the most value is a really key thing. But yeah, Sarah, final bit of advice.
Yeah, so I think most people think that, if I'm good at being, my C-suite function, then I'm going to be great at this. And quite frankly, that's just the table stakes in my view. Yes, because everyone's good at what they do and has got different skills in the main. There's a lot of great talent out there. The key differentiator is about being really curious and interested in relationships and wanting to build trust, wanting to give, not get, and believe in the business owners and give them that, give them back their mojo for when they, which they may have lost, or help them, seek out what they're trying to do. So I really think it's about relationships and it's about all those little things that we can do to build those relationships and be part of that team and an
Mm.
insider and there for them. And
Yeah.
that's the cutting edge, really. That is absolutely the cutting edge of this.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we covered a lot there. I'm just going to reshare kind of final slide to say farewell to people. Yeah, so I think firstly, thank you very much to our panel. So Sarah, Ali, and Frida, thank you very much for sharing your insights. I hope that answered lots of questions on the call. We're definitely going to be keeping this conversation going all year with various events and some more webinars as well. So definitely check that out. If you would like to get the slides I shared, including that amazing Sam Altman one, because that chart on the unicorns with few employees is absolutely mental. You can scan the QR code on your screen now, but we will be sending an email out to all of you just to get some feedback. The kind of feedback we want generally is what questions didn't we cover that you had, but were afraid to ask. What themes around, related to this or the future of leadership or growth or scale that, would you like us to explore in future sessions? You can find out more about Liberti at thelibertygroup.com, which also includes information about Liberti Club and our program of events for the year as well. But on that, I will leave you and wish you farewell and wishing you success in a very uncertain world. Thank you very much for joining us. Cheers. Thanks all.